Hello and welcome to the Kaliedy Parenting Panel 6 months on. Kaliedy is an Irish website for busy parents and families where you can shop baby essentials, nursery items and toys. And it's for real families with real stories. And that's where today comes in. Kaliedy are mindful of the importance of honest, open, informative conversation. It's hugely important. So today we're rejoined by two of the original guests from 6 months ago when Kaliedy first launched. There's no hard sell here. Kaliedy is about building a community of very honest parents who aren't afraid to tell the story, warts and all. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our panel today. Suzanne Kane, broadcaster, podcaster, mum of three, has had quite the life shift since we last spoke to her. Reane Von Meding joined us 6 months ago as well, mum of two. Reane has been on an incredible journey with her wife, Audrey, and spoke about reciprocal IVF, among various other things. No doubt we'll have to get a reminder on that today, Reane. And we have a new addition today in the form of Irish-Nigerian Emer O'Neill. You're very welcome, Emer. Mum of two, presenter, mom, model, PE teacher. Any other titles just to make us all feel bad about ourselves?
We're good there, thanks.
Suzanne, let me come to you first because you were part of this initial parenting chat when Kaliedy first went live 6 months ago. You were the mum of two at the time. You are now mum of three because we've had Sadie join us in the meantime. What's life like?
Oh, hi everyone. It's lovely to be back again. Yeah, it's been so strange. It's like I finally got that where people and parents talked about it's like they'd always been there. I never felt that. I always felt like with Oisín, it was a real like shock to my system. Hannah kind of came in and just terrorized us from very young, whereas Sadie's just I've described her as being the measure of my dreams because I just like this exact week last year I found out I was pregnant on her, and I just kind of went like that and held my breath, and I did that going into a pandemic pregnancy and giving birth in a pandemic. And I can't believe this week she's here 5 months. Like, I just can't believe that this tiny little person has brought just so much love and energy into our house. Like, I honestly, like, the only way I can describe her is that she's the measure of our dreams, because she quite literally is that. And she's changed all of our dynamics. She's changed my dynamic with Hannah, who's now our middle child, who was our little baby. It's changed Oisín, our eldest, who's 6.5. It's changed his dynamic with Hannah, and it's changed his dynamic with us as the eldest boy in the house, you know. And Sadie coming in, I've seen a real gentle part of both of the kids, you know, like Hannah struggled with her arrival, but she's been incredible. She's been on a real journey. And so is Oisín. He's kind of really adapted, but actually Oisín and Hannah have forged this incredible bond, you know, over the past couple of months, because they've kind of realized they have each other. So it's just been, it's a real roller coaster that I just didn't expect.
It completely is, isn't it? And you were anxious, understandably, about the hospital experience because you'd had two children pre-COVID under normal circumstances, and then you were looking at the maternity experience and indeed labor as a very kind of solo journey, I suppose. And you were fearful of it, understandably.
Yeah, hugely. Like for us, I mean, I've spoken to you about it before, and I've spoken quite openly about it, that in December 2019, I had a miscarriage, where I thought I was just about at that point where I would tell everybody that I was pregnant, and that golden 12-week mark that we all hear about. And just in the days before that, I found out that unfortunately that the heartbeat had stopped, and that I'd have to go and actually have an operation to have the baby taken out. It was really, really scary, but I had Joey with me in that. But this time going in, the run up to giving birth was like nothing I've never experienced before, because like I've realized that I do like an element of control in my life, and I do that by trying to plan things out. So in a pandemic, you have very little control. So all you can do is kind of try and control the controllables, if that makes sense. So for me, that was like having the bags ready and having, you know, a plan in place for the children. But like, as it turned out, I was brought in and induced, and I actually was able, as soon as my waters were broke and I was in my room, Joey was able to come and be with me. But there was partners waiting in the car park, you know, for women who are in laboring. And we are so vulnerable at that time. And I always was so thankful of the knowledge of my 2 previous births, because I knew the Coombe so well. My midwife was a queen, Rachel and Noreen. Like, they were just, there was a salt lamp in the room. It was calm. It was very reassuring. But there's this kind of wider moment of when I'd given birth and everything had calmed down and Sadie was wrapped up, Suzanne, put on your mask. So my mask went on. Joey's mask went back on. I'm holding the baby and I say goodbye to Joey, and I was wheeled down to my room and I said goodbye to him at the lift, and everyone around us is in their mask and you're sterilizing your hands to get baby down into the room. So that kind of our bubble, this beautiful bubble of our worlds colliding when Sadie arrived, because I wore the night dress that I had worn in for my ERPC when I had to have the D&C and ERPC when I'd lost the baby, and I wore that night dress for birth because I wanted to have a piece of that baby with me. So I wore that, and like taking that off and then putting a mask on and going from this gorgeous bubble of the sheer relief and joy of Sadie arriving to, okay, say goodbye to your other half now. You're going to go down to your room, and this, you know, it's a really surreal experience. And I feel for every couple and every woman on that journey, because we're still very much in it, and there is still infant loss, there is still, you know, miscarriage, there are still women going through IVF, infertility, trying to navigate all of those. But when you don't have your person beside you, it's just such a weird terrain to be in, you know.
I have loads of questions, and I'm hoping you're not going to make us cry with all these stories today, Suzanne. But let me move on to Reane. And Reane, you might remind us, you have wife Audrey and you have 2 beautiful girls, Ava and Arya. Just give us the ages and the journey, maybe a quick explainer of the reciprocal IVF journey. I feel like I ask you what that is every time I meet you, by the way. But that explainer is important for anyone who isn't aware how it works or what it is.
I'm just going to get a t-shirt with the explainer on it and just wear that around. Suzanne, you're making me want another, like, even through like the craziness of, I know what that experience would be like now, you know, doing fertility treatment in COVID times. But yeah, we've been talking about it a lot since the last time we spoke, and I think we're definitely going to go for it. But reciprocal, yeah. So reciprocal IVF basically is when you've usually a female same-sex couple who want to become parents through IVF. One parent becomes the genetic parent and the other becomes the gestational parent. So essentially we used my wife's eggs, donor sperm, and I carried the babies. So we did that process in 2015. At the time, it wasn't licensed for in Ireland. So when we went to SIMS back in 2015, we were told it was actually a very simple process to do, but we weren't allowed to. So if we really wanted to do that, we would be forced to go abroad. So we had our heart set on that at that point, because I had always really wanted to be pregnant and have that experience. Audrey had no desire whatsoever to be pregnant and was just really lucky that she found a woman who wanted to carry her child for her. Oh. The dream. So we knew that that was the path we wanted to go down. So we just said, you know what? Yeah, it's awful that we can't access treatment here at home, but we'll just go abroad if we have to. So we ended up going to Barcelona, for a month in 2015, and that's when we conceived Ava. So Ava is 4 now, and then we had her little sister Arya, who actually acts like she's older than Ava. She's 2 and 3 months now. So it's been a whirlwind with the 2 of them.
I bet it has. There's no straightforward journey, is there? Emer, let me bring you in here. A new addition to the panel today. Mum of Cian, is that how you say it? And Sunny Ray?
It's Kyan.
Kyan, apologies. Kyan and Sunny Ray. What gorgeous names.
Thank you. I'm having a little difficulty. There we go.
There we go. She's back in the frame.
Okay. Kyan and Sunny Ray.
And tell us about home life and how it's been during the pandemic for you guys.
Well, I had Sunny Ray during lockdown. She is going to be 1 on Saturday.
Wow, okay.
I had a pretty horrific pregnancy, and I had to take early leave in January. I'm a teacher and I'm a PE teacher, so like I was having balls thrown at me and all kind of things, and on top of just not feeling well, you know, I had high blood pressure and I was having extreme fatigue and headaches, and I just wasn't in a good place, nor did I feel kind of safe doing my job, you know, because it's just such an environment that you can't control, you know, and so it was a tough decision, but I felt, you know what, I'm not going to try and be a martyr here. I'm not going to get points for staying at work. Nobody cares either way, you know, and at the end of the day, I would have been so mad at myself if anything had gone wrong with Sunny Ray or the pregnancy, just because I was trying to be this hero. Yeah. So I did take early leave, and she was due in May and she came in April. So she came April 24th. And at that point we were in lockdown, and I was quite concerned because I wasn't really sure. I'd been hearing mixed stories as to like whether the dad was allowed in, or, you know, what was happening. So the one thing that I was told was try and leave it as long as you can to go into the hospital, because if you're not dilated, I think 2 centimeters at least, then the husband can't stay. So I remember the morning of the 24th, about 10 o'clock is when they started. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I think today's the day. And I was early, you know, so I wasn't expecting it as such. And I got my app out and I started doing my timers between contractions and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, it's happening. So we called my brother down because we didn't want it. My mum is the only other person really we would have had down, but because of lockdown and she's, you know, high risk in over 60s, we just said it'd probably safer for my brother to come down. Yeah. And it went very quickly. And I think there was, for me, I remember just thinking, oh my God, I think we need to leave like right now, because the last time with my son, who's 6, I nearly had him in the car. So I was trying so hard to last as long as I could at home, but then also was so afraid that I might leave it too late. So I remember we hopped in the car, we're heading out. Of course, my husband's stopping at stop, you know, like slowing down on an amber and all that kind of stuff, and takes the wrong turn out of our estate when we leave the estate, like goes through Bray Main Street. And I'm like, when would we ever do this when we're trying to get on the motorway? Oh my God. I'm like, if I have this baby in the car, like, just be ready, like it's happening, you know? And I felt like they were getting stronger, the contractions. So in my mind, I'm doing my app and it's saying, get to hospital, get to hospital, get to hospital. And pulls up in front, and I just went in without him initially. And he left the car, like just parked kind of on the side of the road, and then came in with me. And you won't believe this, as I'm sitting there about to get registered, I'm like, no, hello. And the contractions, like
I'm sweating right now.
I was like, are you serious? They weren't half as strong. They weren't as close together anymore. And I was like, oh my God. And Sean's looking at me like, do you know I've probably gotten like 3 tickets just on the way in here? Like, yeah. And you're grand now. And the lady who was registering me, she was like, this happens all the time. It's like you get to the hospital and you scare the baby back in. And I was like, yeah, I honestly think that's what's just happened, you know. But anyway, they brought me up and they had me in the actual delivery ward, because they were so close together before, and just based on what I had told them. But they checked me, and sure, I wasn't even a centimeter dilated. Completely. Oh my God, I was devastated because I knew what that meant.
Yeah, going home.
Oh, basically, yeah, my husband had to go back down to the car, and they put me into the labor ward, you know, to go to work, as they said, you know, you can work on it yourself in there. And yeah, it was tough. So from about, I'd say 1 all the way till 5:30, I was on my own in a cubicle. Like the midwives were great, but they just really couldn't be there. Like I had nobody there rubbing my back through the contractions. I had nobody holding my hand. I had nobody talking to. I had no one to talk to. I was completely on my own for that entire period of time.
Reane, Emer mentioned the worries in the hospital, and sometimes, you know, the unplanned, or the worries that just catch us out of the blue. We seem to worry about lots of things that will never happen, and then suddenly on a Tuesday afternoon you're sidelined by something. Do you think as a parent, we're worrying all the time, aren't we, about children's stuff? Lots of it will never happen, but even when one worry goes away, it's replaced by something else. Or is that just me?
That's definitely not just you. I think we all do it. And it's funny because when me and my wife are just so exhausted by everything. And, I think as an adult, you always say, next week will be easier, or tomorrow will be easier. And it won't be, because let's face it, you get through the things you need to deal with today, and then tomorrow there will be something else. There will always be something, so I think it's just trying to learn to just roll with it as it comes. You're never going to get to a point where you're not worrying about something, or, especially when it comes to your kids, because you worry about everything. You worry about what they're eating, what they're wearing, what they're watching on TV, what friends they have, where they're going to school, what they want to be when they grow up. You worry about everything, and that's, I think that's just part of being a parent.
It's just part parcel of being a parent, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Susie, you're nodding there. Are you a worrier about the kids?
Oh, do you know what? It's so funny, because I've watched a lot of Reane's stories, and there's so much of it that we've actually even spoke about, just in terms of my 4-year-old and Hannah. And I think this pandemic has probably thrown up more so for more parents. I think there's the general flow of parenting that of navigating them starting creches or going to ECI, or that they're going to start school, or navigating friendships, and that their first kind of dalliance into the social world of friendship, and there's all of those things. But I found, I think for our family, that definitely since December and into January and this last lockdown, that it has had such an adverse effect on our parenting and our kids. So Hannah, our 4.5-year-old, is very giddy. She's very sociable. She's a real character, and she totally went into herself and just became basically afraid of life. She just was afraid of people. She was afraid of interaction. Her behavior changed. She wasn't a great sleeper, but she went from, she would catnap for 20 minutes and then be back beside you in the bed. And Oisín was trying to navigate that as well. And he didn't, got to a point even when we were going for a walk, he just didn't want to go for a walk. And they had this constant narrative of, when are the germs gone? When are the germs gone? So, and then it was trying to get them back into school and letting them know that we fully trust your teachers. You're okay. It's good. This is a good thing. You're going to go and see your friends and, make friends. So it's I think more so than ever, exactly what I was saying there, is that there's just a constant thread of worry. But I think even more so with the pandemic, it's something that none of us could have ever, pre-planned for, ever thought about, because that any morning could throw up anything. I know for Oisín, our eldest, he's 6.5, and he would be a really sensitive kiddo. And this morning, on the turn of an eye, he was like, I don't think I want to go to school this morning, and there could be tears involved with that. And you're just always trying to navigate something, and then that when there's sleep deprivation in with it, that you're like, oh. And then the pandemic hasn't afforded a village. There's, I'm sure, Emer, you probably feel that as well. I know you said about your mum and your brother. It's there's nobody coming saying, tell you what, I'll take the other 2 older kiddos off and you guys hang around with Sadie. There's no maternity leave. There's no bonding with your baby and staying at home and having that lovely bit of time. It's an intensity of going from bang, bang, bang. What do we get up at 7 o'clock? We get myself dressed, get the breakfast ready, get the kids down, get ready for ECI, get ready for school, get out the door, get the baby in the car seat, get the baby out of the car seat, get the baby fed. And it's this, like Reane was saying, and you sit at I saw a great meme. I think actually Kaliedy put it up the other day, and they were saying about this, you shouldn't stay up late when you're a parent. You should go to bed and get that sleep. But that at 11 o'clock at night, and you and I sometimes WhatsApp at that time, Anna, because at 11 o'clock at night, it's that time where I'm like, oh, me. I go to my husband, hey, how are you? And he goes, yeah, I'm okay. And we go, Jesus, that was, and he goes, yeah. And then we try and watch something for a couple of minutes because we know at 7 o'clock we pick up where we left off. So I think it's different to anything. And, you know, I can't imagine navigating that then in terms of if your child has, you know, additional needs or that you're attending hospitals, like that just brings a whole other different bubble, you know, of worry into it. So yeah, I think, you know, I hate that that people are like, you know, these are really uncharted waters, and you know,
I know, yeah.
They really are uncharted waters.
But the times where, you know, I would have had a newborn, my mother would just appear at the door and say she'd go and have a shower or whatever, put a bit of makeup on there.
Sort yourself out.
Absolutely.
Put yourself out, or, you know, they just know by looking at you, your family, don't they? Like, she needs to lie down or she needs to go and wash her hair or whatever.
And your mom just comes and sits with you. Like on both of my kids, even like with Oisín, all I did was that I got up, because I called them the baby navies. Like I wasn't postnatally depressed and I didn't have the baby blues. But with Oisín, it was like I got him up, got him in the pram, and we walked. I walked like 10K every day because I couldn't run. So I was like, got out and walked. I'd walk down to see Joey and work. I'd go to my mom's and he'd collect me from my mom's in the evening. And the same with Hannah. It was like into play school and all of those things. But with Sadie, we just couldn't go anywhere and no one could come in. There's just it doesn't let off. And like my mom is, you know, seeing her little baby, I'm like, exactly like this thing of like, here she is, this is what she looks like now, you know. She's like, oh, you know, she'll be walking before I get a time to snuggle her. And I'm like, no, we'll get there. Like, so
I think that's the part that would absolutely break your heart. Like, Emer, you choosing your brother to come and help you because you're already worried that your mum could be compromised in terms of the virus.
Yeah, and that's so hard. Like I can relate to so much that you've said there, Suzanne, and really good points too. It's like for me with my mum and then Sean's parents, like our daughter was a month before they were able to hold her, and like it's so strange. And it's like that you don't have that extra hands, you don't have just somebody to just help you, just even for 5 minutes. And like we have loved it. Now there's been really like positives to it in the sense of our bubble, and the fact that Sean's able to be at home. He has actually been able to watch her grow and be there with her and have this really nice bond that he wouldn't have because I'd be on maternity leave, but he'd be back to work, you know, and he'd be just coming home wrecked at 6:30 and having a few bounces and whatever. But like he's really, really engaged because he's at home, you know, he's feeding, giving her breakfast, he's changing nappies, he's going for walks with her, he's, you know what I mean? And I can see how close they are, and I'm so happy for that. So there's always a little bit of light in there. And for us this time around, I don't know about everybody else, but it feels different this time around. And what we decided with my mum was that we were going to be in her bubble. She was going to be in our circle. And so that way she could help us, she can see her grandkids, and, you know, we can like continue our life and relationship together, because like my mum is older and every day with her is a gift. And for me, I just think back to like a year lost of our relationship, of like photographs and like activities and events and things that we would have been doing that we haven't been able to. So for me, the best thing was you're in our bubble and now we can have some kind of normality. But also, Sunny, we've started dropping her to daycare. Now, this was a huge decision and it was very tough, but I kind of felt, and I don't know about you guys, but I felt like I'm being pulled by my 6-year-old one side, my newborn-ish by the other side, but I'm working full time as well. And then my husband is working full time, but he's off in his room, you know, undisturbed, doing his work from, you know, 9 to 5.
All the heads.
And I just kind of felt, hold on a second, this isn't fair. This is like, we're all working from home, but for some reason, all of the burden is falling on the women. And I was getting this general consensus from friends too, that I wasn't alone. And I just kind of thought like, this isn't fair. And it's not okay. And I think like myself and my husband, we were starting to bump heads, because I'm thinking, why do you get to go off and lock yourself in a room? And I have to juggle everything like that I would have before as far as work, but also kids. And I think it might be an idea to do daycare for Sonny. And the other part of it too was that she was starting to act really strange around people. My brother had called over, and honestly, she was hysterical. Now, he was wearing a black hat and he had a black jumper on. I don't know, but she was hysterical. And I started realizing, like, because she did the same thing then with our nanny, and I think she just was getting, I know that the kids get this anyway, they go through that period of like when they see people and they make strange, but it was on another level of it. And I felt like COVID is really starting to affect her as a child. She's seen people only with masks. She's never gone anywhere other than our house, her granny's house, or her Mimi's house. She doesn't know anybody except for the 7 people that she sees every other day, depending between me and my brother and my mom and my mother-in-law. And that is such a weird and tiny world that I started thinking of like the effects that's having on her and her mentally, like being able to like welcome people and enjoy meeting people and being in different places. And so with her going to childcare now, I swear it's the cutest thing. It's like the United Colours of Benetton down there. Her reminder has every shade of skin color you can imagine. It's the most beautiful thing. And she absolutely loves it. And she has flourished. So, and the minder is a friend of mine, so I didn't have to do that whole, I feel so bad, can I trust her? Is she safe? All these anxieties, and am I being a terrible mother? I'm working when I be with her, and she looks at me and she's like, bye. And all her
you know what, that's so reassuring. I love that when they don't even have time to say goodbye to you, because in my head I'm thinking I'd be crying in the car if they were upset, which I've done. But when they just run off and forget to say goodbye to you, you're like, oh, they're really excited about going in. Reane, how have you juggled family life now with wife Audrey? Does she behave like a man in the family, as in, can she just disappear and do work?
This is funny because I get asked this all the time. What is the dynamic there? And I suppose it's different. It's definitely different. And one of the reasons why I married a woman, there's a lot more equity, I think, in our relationship than I see with a lot of my friends. Women, I feel, are just on a different level emotionally. She gets it. She gets when I'm just done. She gets it when I can't take another thing on. We obviously, there are different struggles that we have. But she wouldn't be the sort of person that would be like, okay, bye, I'm off now, you do that. So I wouldn't say that everything's perfect, but it's definitely a different dynamic than if I were married to a man. Just kind of can see that, see you on that emotional level. It's not just practical of who's doing what. She can see when I'm going through the emotions, and she comes over to me and she says, babe, just go in, just go. I've got this, just go. And she knows when I need to just go and lock myself in a room for an hour, no matter what's going on. And she gets that. So I wouldn't say, we've got everything figured out, but just on that kind of practicality of who does the cooking, who does the cleaning, who takes care of the kids, who brings them to school. It's very equitable in that sense.
And I think in the difference there is that obviously she's female, so she can pick that up faster. My husband, and I don't think he's unique in this, will often say, just tell me. Like he's more than willing to do anything, but like, just say it. Whereas in your situation, you're dealing with another woman and you don't need to say it at all.
Yeah, which is nice, because you don't want to have to say it, because that's kind of the whole point, isn't it?
Yeah.
You want someone to be able to see it and just do it.
So basically, we all want a gay relationship off the back of this class.
Sorry.
The communication thing is huge, though, isn't it? It's one thing that you have to really learn as a parent. And Emer, I know you touched on it there. You were saying about like you and your husband coming to a point where you felt like you were almost butting heads, and it's a constantly fluid and changing situation when kiddos come into the mixer like that. I remember like when Oisín, who's 6.5, like I remember Oisín coming home and Joey picking up a bottle and he was like, did you sterilize this? Like, he nearly had a bottle up his nose. Like, he was nearly in the nearest A&E with the damage done to, you know. But whereas with Sadie, this time, the two of us, it was so intense, and there was no one to come and give us any respite for a couple of minutes or just to catch ourselves. And Hannah, our 4.5-year-old, doesn't sleep. So if we weren't feeding Sadie, we were trying to help Hannah and support her and, you know, keep her in her bed and just let her know that she's safe. And we were there. And we were over the dishwasher, and you know that moment where you're like, there could be a big show down here. Like,
yeah.
But we both had to just go.
We all know that moment.
Yeah. And I could feel like I didn't know whether I was going to scream with sheer frustration of, I didn't know what I was frustrated about, but I didn't know whether I was just going to cry just out of sheer hormones and just that release. And that we just had to look at each other, and he just went, I'm sorry. I know. He was like, I'm so tired. And I was like, I'm so tired. And he's like, Susie, like, we'll be okay. And I went, I know, I'm just so tired. I just need somebody to take a baby. And he's like, I know, it's okay. Because like that, and you're probably the same. And Renee, I hope you guys, you and Audrey, go and have another baby. But it's that roller coaster of, like, I'd held my breath for so long when I found out I was pregnant, and I'd held my breath when she was born. And then it got to like 12 weeks and we were still in lockdown, that I had, like, last April thought it was going to be like the snow for 2 weeks and that we'd all be grand, like. And we were here a year later, and it was now January, and she was home, and I was like, I kind of let my breath out. But with letting my breath out, it was like I just depleted everything. Like, it was like my hormones changed, my body changed, mentally, everything just went whoomp. And I was like, oh my goodness. So it is that thing where I had to be very vocal and go, I'm empty. Like, there's nothing. I can't Jesus.
And I need some help here. Like, classic example, this morning, I was getting ready to do this, and I was looking at some notes and trying to put some makeup on, and I just shouted down the stairs, Ben, will you clean up the kitchen before you leave? Absolutely no issue. I walked downstairs, the kitchen was done. So it's a classic case of, you just need to say it and ask. And, you know, for the most part, a nice person will go, yeah, no worries. Like, just tell me, rather than getting in a snot later on because I didn't do it. Just ask, you know, and you kind of learn that as you go. Now, I want to move on to various projects that you're all part of or working on or passionate about. Before I do, I just don't want to run out of time in terms of what listeners, viewers are, the stage of their life they're at. You guys can give them some valuable tips. So jump in, anybody, on this. I have 2 questions for you. Was it nice in a sense of having no visitors in the hospital? This is more Suzanne and Emer, I suppose. I remember being in hospital and thinking, oh my God, I need to pull it together now because, you know, my friend is dropping in or someone's coming in and I need to look like I'm on top of this. It must be nice to not have any visitors in the hospital at all, in a sense.
I think for me, because unlike Emer was probably in a different place to me in terms of, she was quite concerned about Sunny Ray, I think, and you were going through the motions of that, and not, for me, I could have visited, I could have Joey for 2 hours every day, and I'm really lucky my sister-in-law's a midwife, so she was on night shift, so she had called down as well to see me. But actually, it wasn't the hospital for me, it was the initial of coming home. And the only thing I've ever kind of thought was that there is maybe a place that's very hot for people who knock into a new mom without texting her or without giving her any notice. Like, do never do that to a mom, because exactly as you said, Anna, there's this instant feeling that you should have yourself together, that you should not have maybe breast milk leaking from you, or that you're trying to maybe spend that time with baby at home to get baby to latch on and start that breastfeeding process. For a lot of women, you know, especially if it's your first foray into the world of breastfeeding, that you feel really conscious about it. So if you can sit and have baby on your chest and you guys can figure that out, but the fear of a knock of a door, that's not great. Or like that, if you're sitting, like, as I said, I didn't have the baby blues or postnatal, but I was baby navies that I could just be in tears. And the idea of someone being able to knock at any time, it's like you're on high alert. Whereas with this, ain't nobody calling past my door. No one can do anything. So actually, like, we came home at Christmas time and we went into our bubble, and that was absolutely gorgeous. Like, I did, and exactly as Emer said, like, Joey is full on, you know, bottles. If he could have had a baby to a latch to a nipple there, he would have given it a shot, you know what I mean? But like,
I think, Reane, would you agree with this? The nicest thing someone can do for you when you have a newborn baby at home is to leave a dinner on the doorstep and feck off.
100%. I know I haven't been lucky enough to have the experience of having a really good excuse of a pandemic to not have people come over, because I remember when Ava was born, and this is a big regret of mine, having so many people come over in the first week of her life. I was in absolute bits. Like I had a horrendous birth with Ava. Thankfully, second time around, it was like really great and it was really healing. But the first time around, it was really traumatic. I literally had mastitis pretty much from the moment she was born and was hospitalized with mastitis. It was like for 6 months, she had tongue tie, she wouldn't latch. I constantly just had my boobs out. Oh, we have a baby joining us.
Oh, look. Perfect timing, Sadie.
Hi, baby. But yeah, it was awful. Like it was really hard. And we had like at least 2 sets of visitors coming in every day. And, you know, people would just kind of drop in, and I just felt this need to like, you know, have my hair done.
Perform almost.
Yeah, and it was awful. And looking back, you know, so second time around, we definitely didn't do that. But then I felt like I needed to make all these excuses, you know, and you shouldn't have to make excuses to just want to be in your own little bubble. So yeah, I think it's definitely probably that has been a silver lining for anyone who has had kids this time, you know.
But I think if you're watching it and you even if it's not a pandemic and, you know, please God, people are allowed to come and visit, I think knowing it's okay to say to I'm not able, you know, we just need a bit of time. Like I think especially with your first, nothing prepares you. Nothing.
No, and I think you get a bit more assertive as you go. Maybe second baby or third baby, you go, do you know, I'm not going to take any visitors. And maybe you're just a bit more mature and a bit more confident.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to try and make everything look perfect, because it's far from it.
No, and I think people need to know the honesty of that narrative as well. We're fed so many images of this perfect life of, you know, these Instagram babies that it's like the baby's lying with rose petals around their head and it's like babies, you know, slept through the night. And, you know, I just don't think that's fair to women. I think we are, and especially through this pandemic and having babies and rearing children, and like Emer was saying about that narrative of like taking it all on, like we are incredible. And it doesn't have to be Instagram perfect to make that incredible.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. You are enough. You are good enough. And, you know, whatever which way you're feeding your baby and whatever which way baby sleeps with you, once you're getting through each day and you're doing okay, and even if that comes that you need to go and have a chat and go, you know, I'm not coping and I'm finding it a little bit difficult, that's okay too. Yeah. Because nobody's perfect and no parent is.
And the snapshot of a day on Instagram, you know, where the room is beautiful and the nursery is perfect and the Moses basket is strategically placed with, you know, everything just looks so beautiful, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a 2-second snapshot of someone's day. But we look at it as if their life is more perfect than mine.
Exactly. And I think that's really, really, you know, it's not a great narrative. And especially when I think we're so vulnerable within pregnancy, within trying to conceive, and when babies arrive into our world and parenting. And I think we don't give ourselves the credit for that, you know, and I definitely, I think it does come with, I definitely didn't have that view when I had Ushi, and I was, everything had to be perfect all of the time. The pressure was intense. And, you know, I think definitely this pandemic and having Sadie has taught me that it's okay. And like I was saying to Reane, she had said about having the third baby, and I was like, do it. I was like, can you imagine the love in your house with 4 little girls, like as in you guys being you and Audrey being the other little girls, and then the girls with Arya and Ava. Like, can you imagine bringing a baby into that love, into that mixer? Like that's what parenting is. That's what being a sibling is like.
Oh, listen, Renee's made her decision. I know.
I'm so excited.
You know what? We talk about this every day. Like even last night, we were lying in bed and we had the laptop in bed because we were too tired to even sit on the couch and watch something. So we had the laptop in bed watching like the latest Grey's Anatomy or something. And Audrey just says to me, she's like, "We are going to have another one, aren't we?" You know, it was like a scene with a baby in the NICU or something. She's like, "We're gonna have another one, aren't we?" And I'm like, you know what my feelings on it, like I definitely want to have another. Like we're wrecked all the time, and we constantly have this conversation that you were saying, Suzanne. We constantly stop and look at each other and we're like, I'm so exhausted. I'm so exhausted. But you know that that will pass. You're not going to be exhausted forever. You know, you may be exhausted for, you know, 4 or 5 years, but then you'll go into a new phase, you know.
Yeah, they say the days are long, but the years are short. So, sorry, Suzanne?
What do they say? You might as well be hung for a sheep as for a lamb. Is that what they say?
Yeah, and also, and it's really
doesn't
true.
sleep anyway, so.
But the days are long, but the years are short. And I think that's really true as our boys get a little bit older and life starts to get a bit easier. You know, you go, oh God, that is actually so true. So you're right. I mean, if you're there now, go for it, you know, because you'll be so glad that you did and you won't regret it. And it sounds like if you don't, you will not be happy with that decision in a few years down the line, Reane. You have been a busy girl because you have various projects that I've seen on your social media. One of them particularly interesting. Tell us about the celebrant.
So, yeah, this is completely random. But, you know, just me being me, I like to have a million projects on the go. And I always feel like, you know, I want to learn new things and do new things. And one of the areas that I was looking at was the area of kind of doing weddings and perhaps funerals, baby naming ceremonies, you know, being the sort of person to kind of hold that space for people. I think it's a really special, anyone who has had a ceremony that has been really special to them, you always remember that person who is able to help you achieve that and navigate that kind of really special moment in your life, whether that's a really happy moment or it's a really somber and sad moment. And actually one of my best friends now, her name is Karen Dempsey, she actually married Audrey and myself back in 2016, and we didn't know each other. She was a celebrant and we wanted someone who was very much about inclusivity and, you know, just about accepting any spirituality, whatever it is that you know, believe and is important to you. And she was very much that person for us. And we actually became friends then after she married us. And funny story, she had her daughter 12 hours apart from Arya. So we ended up getting pregnant at the same time. And, you know, we were due like a couple of weeks apart, but whatever happened, she gave birth early. And Arya was born New Year's Eve and her daughter Roisin was born New Year's Day. So they're like 12 hours apart, but in different years, which is really funny. And they're the best little pals. They love each other so much. But yeah, Karen asked me if I wanted to train with her. She's, you know, training celebrants, and I said yes. So we've been working on that, and yeah, so I am now available to be booked for.
So you're done with the training, so you can actually do weddings. I
can, yes. So we were just kind of getting it all finalized before I announced it, but yes, I can.
Fantastic.
Which is really exciting.
Yeah.
So one of the many things I've been working on.
And you know what, to have a job where you're part of the biggest day in someone's life is pretty cool.
Yeah. Really special, yeah.
Susie, in terms of juggling home, work, I know you come into us obviously in Ireland AM, so you can't do that from home. The podcast, Dubland, has that happened from home or from studios, or how's it working?
No, so myself and PJ work best when we're in front of each other. For the pandemic last year, I recorded from home and PJ recorded from home, but as soon as we could get back into studio, we got back into studio because I kind of need to read PJ Gallagher's face to see if, you know, what he's at sometimes. And actually, it's kind of weirdly cathartic. Like, PJ Gallagher is not a person I thought that I would sit at the other side of a table who would ask me about, you know, well, talk about your miscarriage and tell me, how did that feel? And he asks like kind of like, I say this in the best possible way, but he asks like almost childlike questions, because he's like, you know, because I had said like Sadie was born at Christmas, and exactly a year before that I had been in hospital with the miscarriage, and he's like, but were you not very sad? Was not very sad, like, you know. it kind of really helps.
Actually, a genius question. Do you know, that's a Louis Theroux kind of question.
Yeah,
Because it opens up this whole world of, well, wait till I tell you.
And it's funny because we very much have very different polar opposite views on things in the way that his view and my view will be very skewed. So I think it's really interesting that we get to do that. Yeah, so Dubland is back every single week, and myself and PJ talk about whatever whatever happens. Yeah, so that's quite, it's nice. It feels the most unmammy thing that I do.
Yes, okay. It's good to have unmammy things going on in your life.
Yeah, well, like other than going into Ireland, I'm probably talking about Mother's Day or events for the kids. But yeah.
Emer, we've just been chatting to the girls about, you know, working differently, working from home. Susie with the podcast, doing bits from home in terms of voiceover. I saw you doing voiceover from the bedroom recently, Susie, as the voice of Today FM. So we're all kind of working away, tipping away at various projects. And one thing I watched recently was a very interesting interview that you did with Joe Malloy on Off the Ball. I know Joe obviously from doing rugby on Virgin Media, and he's just a fantastic host. And he had you talking very openly about some of your quite shocking experiences around racism. And your narrative, certainly the clip that I'd seen, was around how white people need to speak up, otherwise we're just accepting of it. Give us a sense of that chat again and the graffiti on the wall.
Yeah, like, because it's funny, you know, we've been talking about our experiences with our kids and, you know, the trials and tribulations that they bring and how tough kind of life is just within that realm of things. Yeah. But alongside, while that's going on for me as a parent and dealing, you know, with my 6-year-old and my 10-month-old, I've also been, you know, open to a lot of harassment and huge issues around feeling safe in my home. And it actually started when my daughter was only a couple of weeks old. So when George Floyd was murdered and that became such a massive thing in the news, I felt like I needed to speak out because I felt like so much of it was like pointing fingers at America and Americans. And I just kind of thought that's just so rich because we have racism here in Ireland. It's not an American thing. And I just kept hearing America, America, America. And I felt like I need to bring light maybe to what's going on our own doorstep, because I always believe like you've got to make sure your home is okay before you go try to change other places. Yeah. And I have not spoken out about my issues with racism growing up and being a woman of color and even a mixed race child growing up in Ireland. I just didn't speak about it because I wasn't comfortable. I wasn't comfortable in my own skin to begin with. So I definitely wasn't comfortable to really highlight that about myself and to have others notice me for that reason. But I felt, you know what, if I don't speak about something like this now, like then when? And at the time, you know, I did suffer with postnatal depression with my son Kai, and I was within the mental health in Hollis Street the whole way through my pregnancy and afterwards. So I was on high alert and high watch because I knew how susceptible I was. And one of the things that my husband said before I made the video was, you know, are you sure you want to do this? Because obviously this is going to be something that's going to add to already stressors that you have with the new baby, trying to breastfeed, and I was having issues trying to breastfeed and all those, everything else, you know. But like that, I just said, I need to do this. I have to do this. And I am doing it for our kids. I'm doing it for their future. I'm doing it for
the next generation.
Yeah. And I put out a video and it went viral. And so it was about 3 weeks after my daughter was born, all of a sudden I was speaking at a rally down in Bray Seafront. You know, she's in the buggy beside me. And it just snowballed from there. I was on, you know, the Ryan Tubridy show. I was in newspapers. I was on the Late Late. I was, you know, I did loads of stuff, and I was doing social media takeovers on Instagram, trying to just spread the word of racism here in Ireland and the things that we need to do close to home to make changes for our country so that we are inclusive and because we're so diverse, but it's not represented very well at all across.
Well, we think we've made so much progress, but what kind of a reaction did you get off the back of that?
Off the back of that was so my son's birthday, June 18th. We had a few little kids over, and our house was egged. I remember we were in the sitting room, and next minute it was just like boom, 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 boom. Everybody, the kids were freaking out, and my brother jumped up and he goes, "There's lads egging your house." So he ran out after them, and they legged it off, whatever. That was the beginning of it. That was the first thing. So that was about a week or two after, I would say, I had done like the rally and my video, and I had started really speaking out about things. And then I'd say it was maybe a couple of weeks later, I got a message to say that my name was plastered all over a wall just down the road from my house. So they had written Emer O'Neill, All Lives Matter, Shut the Fuck Up, Slut. And I remember the first time I saw it, I just my stomach, I couldn't believe that was my name. Couldn't believe it was on a wall that I pass and have passed so many times in my life, because this is my hometown where I've grown up. And I thought it was a once-off, but it wasn't, and it happened about 7 or 8 more different times in different estates, on the back of a wall of a gym, which ironically I was sitting where my son, he was at a football training, and directly behind my back was written Emer O'Neill, Shut the Fuck Up, Slut, All Lives Matter, literally on a wall right behind my back. And the irony of it, that, I'm a mum, I'm a part of the community, and, sitting there cheering the lads on in their session, and then this horrendous, hate speech right behind my back. It was so hard seeing it. And, it then happened in my own estate, which was the really scary part, because I felt, people know where I live now.
Yeah, it's closing in.
It's closing in. That exact same handwriting, that exact same slogan or whatever in my estate, in an alleyway where my son plays with his friend, where they kick ball. And that really shook me. And then a month or so after that, my neighbor 2 doors up, somebody came and poured acid on their car. And the guards came, and the sergeant said, "Look, Emer, honestly, we believe that was meant for you. It was just a case that they did the wrong house. They have an SUV, we have an SUV. They're an elderly couple, you know what I mean? There's absolutely no reason why anything like that would happen to them." And it just kind of went along with the things that had been occurring to us, their car was totaled, the acid. So we got cameras after I saw the graffiti in our estate. I said, "I want cameras, we need cameras, I don't feel safe." So we could see from our cameras and our neighbors' cameras that 2 men came out from, there's a little forest area just in front of my house, whatever they had it in, opened it up, and the 2 of them did 2 rounds around the car, and then headed off nonchalantly back into the woods with hoods up. And it was chilling. It was chilling to watch.
And Emer, this pushback comes from obviously a very small minority of very ignorant people, but what are they pushing back on? Because your narrative is equal rights.
Yeah.
We all need to stand up.
Yeah. To be honest, it's a minority, but that minority have been very loud. I'll be really honest.
Yeah, it's very concerning.
And it's been really hard, because we're talking about, breastfeeding and wanting to make sure our kids are okay and not sleeping at night, and our other kids worrying about the virus and all of these things that are day-to-day life as a parent. But just another load to bear is the idea that my family is not safe in our home, that people that despise me know where I live, that it's to a point of, now it's not written word, it's actually acid. That's something that is harmful physically. it's dangerous, it's scary. It was so scary for me. And I think honestly it's just the idea of not understanding that the Black Lives Matter movement is not that people of color or Black people want to have more rights or be healthier or, you know, be superior. It's like that at the moment, you know, people of color and minority groups are down here, and we just want to be here as far as equality. And you know, I think it's so important. The reason why I've been sharing my story, I don't like to bang on about the past. I'm not that type of person, but I think it's very important for people because a lot of Irish people don't believe that there's racism in our country to begin with. But if you listen to my story and things that have happened to me in the past and present, you will go away and know 100% that there's racism in this country.
Yeah,
everybody.
We like to think that there isn't, but we get a wake-up call then when the likes of yourself speaks out.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have started speaking out, and a lot of stories have surfaced, and it is shocking, but it's eye-opening. And I think once you see the lack of diversity in our country, you will never unsee it again. And once you recognize the systematic racism that is innately in the country and the world, without you even knowing it, you will see that and never unsee it again. And it starts, like I said, I think in your home, where you just actually sit down for a second and you just look around your gap and you say to yourself, okay, how inclusive am I within my home?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to look at my kids' toys. Do I have, you know, dolls and action figures that have brown skin, or is everything white? Like looking at maybe the TV, the movies that you watch with your kids, even as a family, like is the main character always a white person, or do you show your kids a person of color in a positive light where they're the superhero or they're the intellect of the story or whatever, you know, but positive. Your reading materials, you look at your kids' books, you look at your own reading material. Do you read literature that has been written by minority groups or that delves into topics as such? There's so much, you yourself, even music, you know, have you introduced your kids to different ethnic music, you know, food, everything? There's so much within your own home.
It's like an edit, a self-edit on our homes that we need to do and on our lives ultimately, even though we all think we're fantastically equal and, you know, we can all do an extra bit, I suppose. It ends in a very positive note, Emer. Well, it hasn't ended, but there is a very positive outcome in that you've contributed to the anti-racism development course that feeds into the Irish Teachers Organisation, right? Yes.
So the INTO came to me and said that they wanted to make a prevention and intervention racism module for primary school teachers, so that they could reflect on their own unconscious bias, which if you haven't done it, do it, and reflect on your privilege. And it's not privilege as in, like, we all have been through things. We have all had things happen to us in our life. We may have grown up in single parent families, abusive families, or, you know, struggled in many ways. But the privilege that I'm talking about is the privilege that you have never been discriminated against because of the color of your skin.
Yeah.
And I can't say that. I cannot say that. And for us, what we want to do is to try and help teachers to get into that mindset, because we are diverse. We are so diverse as a country, and we are becoming more and more diverse. But education is key here, and our kids and our children are key here, and the education that they are getting. And you have to see within your school, within your classroom, as a teacher, I'm a teacher, how inclusive am I being? How intercultural am I being? Am I representing that within my schoolwork, within the material that I'm showing the children? What the guest speakers that I have in? Is this like a 1 month thing because of Black History Month, or is this ingrained in the culture of the school? Can you walk into our school and see that this is a multicultural and diverse school just by walking in, by seeing, you know, pictures on the walls perhaps, or just, you know, and
all signs are there.
Yeah, are there.
I think you've been hugely courageous in speaking out, and I think we all feel really sorry for what you've gone through, Emer. We all need to play our part, and I think that's the message that we can all take from this. Let me just close it on a couple of quick words for maybe expectant mums or parents who are tuned in today, guys, in terms of the hospital bag or how to prepare for the maternity visits or labour in hospitals while we're still in the pandemic. I know we're coming out of it, but we're still there. What kind of advice would you have for anyone tuning in today?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I would say your bag will look after itself. Like, you know, you like, oh, but Kaliedy always have stuff up there that'll show you all the bits that you need. But I think actually being able to look after yourself, especially around the pandemic, and being able to say it out loud about, you know, if you're going in to give birth, to be able to say to your consultant or to say to your midwife things that, you know, not necessarily your birth plan, but the stuff, especially if it's your first, what makes you nervous? You know, is it going to be an instrumental birth, or, you know, that C-section you really don't want it, or that you'd like to breastfeed, or you're nervous about breastfeeding, or that you want to bottle feed, or whatever it is using your voice a little bit. Because you can pack your bag, you can have the baby grows, you can do all those bits and pieces, but actually you need to I think we kind of forget almost about ourselves. It's all about the baby and the birth. And then in those, especially those 2 weeks, the intensity of those 2 weeks of bringing a baby home, the bag will go into the corner, and like the cot's here and the room and all that, but checking in with yourself, and again, you know, being really honest and saying, you know, I'm a bit overwhelmed, or I'm enjoying this, or, you know, I'm really like, you know, taking it in my stride, or actually I find this bit difficult, and saying those the things out loud to whoever your person is, and that you do verbalize it. Because I think at the moment, more so than ever, we're really in uncharted waters, and women are really bearing the brunt of that, and we feel something internally that we kind of be like, we should have all the plates spinning all of the time, you know, but it's all right to hand them over a little bit, and to take that bit of time, because
for help.
Yeah, and there's, you know, there probably isn't a lot that people can do at the moment, because you can't have, maybe if your mom is available to you, or to come in and do that. So it's being able to say, look, I can't do it all at the time by myself, and can you pick up the slack on this? Because I always find it when people go, sleep when the baby sleeps, and like my 4-year-old and 6-year-old didn't get that memo, you know. So that's why I probably burnt out at week 12. So being able to say those things out loud, like, you can shop online. I shop online. Like, literally, I get deliveries every day. I have no idea what's in them, because I bought them at 4:30 in the morning.
We were laughing about that earlier on before we started recording here.
Yeah,
you get surprises every day because of your middle of the night.
Every single day, like every day. I ordered from Kaliedy, and I ordered it, I think, at like 4:30 in the morning, and it arrived that afternoon, and I went, what did I get from Kaliedy? And I was like, oh yay, my Clever Mama stuff is here. It's like, but I do it all the time, because I'm sitting at 4:30 in the morning. I'm invariably sitting on a floor trying to, you know, look after somebody. So to me, my brain, because we do this as parents, right, all the time, is that my brain goes, oh, do you know what I need to do? I need to get stuff for Sadie's room. I need to get her cot sheet. So at that point in the quietness of the night, I go, oh, I'll order that now. But we're so hectic during the day, and then my best friend, the DPD man, comes, and I'm like, hey Phil, and he's like, gives me a delivery, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what this is. I'm so excited. But
I think that we've all gotten to know our couriers and our postmen,
besties,
like part of our crew.
Yeah.
On the question of like what to prepare, like, I think what you said, Suzanne, is like you can get all the right things and have all the bits you need, and sometimes you still feel completely unprepared. What I would say helped me a lot the second time around was actually doing some hypnobirthing classes. We were obviously able to do them in person at that time, but just my mindset was completely different going into the second pregnancy and the second labor. Kind of like what you said, Emer, I very much latched onto the idea of I'm an athlete, and, you know, that kind of whole mentality. And I think they use that a lot in hypnobirthing as just a metaphor, and it's just a really nice thing to kind of latch onto. But yeah, like, there are so many amazing people providing classes online for both the person who's pregnant and your partner, and honestly, they just help so much. and just to feel a bit more confident in yourself.
Absolutely.
That process,
whatever gets you through. And Emer, you are a true athlete, but I think any woman who's gone through childbirth can, you know, call themselves
warriors.
Athlete.
We are warriors, is what we are. Yes. But my advice isn't as good as your guys. Yours is actually really good advice. But one of the things that I did, and this was so silly, and it was my second time having a child, but I would say, make sure that you have one bag that has everything kind of that you need for the baby as soon as they're born.
Yes.
Because what I did is I had 2 bags, but I had pieces in one bag, pieces in another bag, but they wouldn't let me bring both bags. So then when the baby was born, they were like, okay, have you got her little, you know, gear ready here in the bag? And I'm like, oh no, that's in the other bag, you know. So I was like, what rookie mistake? Like, come on, Emer, this is not your first rodeo. But I would just say that one bag that you have that they will allow you to bring into your room while they store the rest of your stuff somewhere else is just to make sure that you have, you know, one of everything in there just in that bag. And another one is a long cord for your phone.
Oh, good tip.
I know, long cord, because I would want to be, we did a lot of stuff on the phone, obviously, because people weren't allowed in and all that.
Yes.
But the plug socket's like up here, you know, so if you have a short wire, you know, and you're trying to do your calls or whatever. So I actually had my husband bring in an extension cord to me.
Extension lead.
That's how serious it was, you know. But then also on a more serious note, I was suffering really bad with anxiety on the lead up to giving birth, and it really helped me. I took a mindfulness and anti-stress course, and there was loads, too much for me to remember, but the thing that I took from it was my breathing, my 7-11 breathing, and it's something that's still with me now. So even if I'm finding it difficult to get to sleep at night, which happens so much, because like that at night at 11 o'clock when it's silent, that's my me time, and that's when my brain goes, bing, okay, what do we need to do? What
into full-on worry mode.
Tomorrow? What's going the next day? What's on this weekend? Who needs what? Who need, you know, to wind yourself down, and that's just that, you know, in for 7, and then out for a long 11, and just keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And I honestly, it's very simple, but it really helped me so much.
I think you're right. I think whether it's hypnobirthing, mindfulness, pregnancy yoga, even if it's virtual at the moment, it probably has to be. You'll never take in everything that they give you. I mean, it's just mountains of information, isn't it? But if there's 1 or 2 little takeaways that get you through that time, it's worth doing.
Absolutely.
I listened to Dermot Whelan, so obviously I work.
Yeah.
I work in Today FM. So he had all the way through the pandemic, I listened to him every night just because he has meditations every night, and I got into it. But in the middle of my labor, things kind of just took a little bit of a funny turn, and I dipped down, and my anxiety got quite high, and I was like, what am I going to do? So I stuck my AirPods in and I listened to Dermot's meditation. So then when I got back into work, he was like, how did you get on? And I was like, well, you're with me. And he was like, what? And I went, yeah. I was like, so things got a little bit rocky. And he was like, he goes, so I said, I put you in my ears and I listened to a meditation. And he was like, are you serious? And I went, I just needed that lovely, exactly as you said, even about the breathing. I just needed that just to kind of center myself back down again. And I felt very comfortable listening to him, and I knew it would calm me down. So he's like, do we have a bad association now? Are we good? I was like, no,
we're very good.
We're really good. I was like, you actually now. Yeah, you got me over to the far side. And actually, funny you said about the bag is and it's no disrespect to your partner, but it's I would talk Joey through my bag before I left. So we're like, see these knickers? These are the knickers we need. If I get stuck in the hospital, these do not come with any other type of knickers, not going out knickers. Like these are the knickers.
So not your tongue then, no?
No, do not come in with them.
The big ones.
And I'd be like, this, this is the bra that we're going to go with, or, this is what I use, or these are the pads. And I was like, and then had everything in the Ziploc with first outfit. And yeah, so and it's not that we it's any disrespect to your other half. It's just, yourself in the madness of what's happening, or things anything can happen in when you're in labor, so that they can just pull their hand, because like that, I remember with Oisin going, can you bring me in knickers? And like he had an array on the bed, and I was like, do you think we're going out tonight? Like I need these ones. So yeah, just so they're aware of what they need to get as well.
Exactly. Well, I think the silver lining from what I can gather from all of you is that it has been precious time. There's been little or no help, unfortunately, but it has been a lovely warm bubble to be in, just to enjoy baby and family, in your case, Reane. Girls, thanks so much for not just joining us today, but for being so honest and kind of laying it all out there, as the three of you do so well. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
For having me, yeah.
Thank you. Emer O'Neill, Reane Von Meding and Suzanne Kane. It's been a pleasure.